Hello and welcome to a bit of a different video this time. This one's not so much a review or an unboxing or first impressions or just why I love a game, but rather this one is more about the industry in general, as well as something we do, or more specifically something we don't do and why we don't do it. But first of all, this video is brought to you by Board Game Co. They're super awesome. They sell games, trade games, buy games. They're hard to find, new, whatever. It's your one-stop board game shop, Board Game Co. I really like them. Highly recommend them. In any case, that being said, this video is about prospecting on Kickstarter, what it is if you don't know about it, and why we don't do it, even though a lot of people think it's right up our alley. And they're right, it should be right up our alley. In any case, Kickstarter prospecting is the general idea of finding any one of these particularly lovely Kickstarters and whatnot, finding a Kickstarter game, buying it, and then flipping it a year and a half later when it finally hits for a profit. It's the general idea of just taking, getting in on something when it's a limited supply and you can't get it back again. A typical example of this is a CMON Kickstarter, any of the Zombicides or the Cthulhu's or any of the companies that do one and done. It's a little harder with companies that make reprints. Deep Madness was a reprint. The different Kickstarters do come back again, and those are a little harder, although still potentially profitable. But really, you find those companies that have a track record of releasing one Kickstarter, and that is your only opportunity ever to get those specials. Obviously, you can buy Zombicide retail, or Rising Sun retail, but you cannot get it with all the extras that came in the Kickstarter. And because of that, you get in on that limited time opportunity, and then a year and a half later, you turn around and flip it for a profit. Now, because we're like not your typical board game store. Board Game Co. deals with a lot of used games, a lot of, we have everything. We're not a seasonal, we have the new stuff and then you come by and then next month we have the next new stuff. Sometimes we have the new stuff, but more often than not, we just have stuff from all time, from all points in gaming history, things that have stayed popular, things that haven't stayed popular but are still around. We have it all. And so a Kickstarter game, flipping Kickstarters seems like something that would be right up our alley, and I agree with people who think that, but we don't do it. And we don't do it for a very specific reason, although the reason has changed from what the reason would have been 3-4 years ago. So 3-4 years ago, or maybe 5, I'm not sure exactly, but there was a point when we were really interested in the idea of buying Kickstarters, flipping them for a profit. The problem at the time was, up until recently, and this might be too much information, but up until recently, Board Game Co. wasn't making any money. We were thankfully not going into any debt. We were able to stay floating, coasting along and whatnot, paying our bills. But I've said this before on the forums. I've been very frank about it, very upfront, and everyone in the hobby tends to be very frank about this. But don't go into board games with the expectation that you're gonna, make a fortune. Maybe you will if you really struggle through, get lucky. But it's not a great place to make money. And up until a year and a half ago, we basically had been in business since 2012, and when I ran this out of my basement, when I packed and shipped everything myself, I made a little money, but nothing crazy. Basically, I was paying myself for my time. I was paying myself to be the laborer of the business, to do everything in the business. Once we actually started incurring those costs, the storage costs, warehousing costs, labor costs, all those other costs, we didn't make a cent for 3-4 years. And then finally in 2018, we finally started making money, and 2018, 2019 have been much better for us. So 3-4 years ago, when we were barely able to pay our bills, when any single given month was a question of whether I had to write a check to the company, at the time there was no question of prospecting on Kickstarter and speculating on Kickstarter, and there's no question of spending thousands of dollars to buy games, locking up that money for a year and a half, and then turning around and flipping it. Sure, it's profitable, but we just didn't have the resources to do it at the time. The problem is, even though now the business is doing better and now we actually do have enough of a budget that we can allocate some of that towards speculating, it's still not something I'm going to do, but for an entirely different reason. And it's something that you should consider yourself, whether you really want to do it or not, for these reasons. Because the nice thing about Kickstarter speculating compared to, buying from a distributor is you don't have to have a license. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't have to show that you're a game store. All you have to do is have some money, and then you can speculate. The problem is, so the barrier to entry is much lower, which is why a lot of people do it. And that barrier to entry just means you have $100 or 150 or whatever it is you have, you put it into the Kickstarter, and then a year and a half later you turn around and flip it. There's none of the costs of a typical business are in play here. You're welcome to do it on your own, no problem. So the reason we don't do it now, and the reason we have no interest in really getting into it, is because the market has changed drastically. Back in the day, if you had, where's my Blood Rage? Back in the day, if you got this bad boy, and you got the Kickstarter for this, you could turn around and flip this, the Kickstarter edition of everything in Blood Rage for, $300-400. Even now, it still gets $250 easily. And if you had Arcadia Quest, if you got the Arcadia Quest, the original Arcadia Quest exclusives, I think it's called the Guildmaster box. Again, you could flip that for a huge profit, because that was back in the day. That was 4 or 5 years ago. Kickstarter as a platform for board games has drastically evolved over the past 5 years, and turning around and flipping Blood Rage, turning around and flipping Arcadia Quest, finding these games that you could really get, Madara, the first edition of Madara, finding these games that you can invest in and flip, there was huge money to be made. But the problem is, whenever you have an opportunity to make money and there is no barrier to entry, as in the case of Kickstarter Speculating, other people want to do it too. Meaning, so our Blood Rage was great because when you bought the first edition of Blood Rage back in the day, it was an easy buy, but not a lot of people were in on the Kickstarter game. No one knew there was money to be had. So when you turned around and flipped it, it was hard to get that copy of the game. There were limited copies available and a lot more people who wanted it. But turn around and go to Rising Sun over here. When Rising Sun came out, people knew what's up. They saw, oh hey, this is practically a guaranteed deal. It's the same publisher as Blood Rage, the same artist as Blood Rage, the same designer as Blood Rage. It's literally listed as being part of the Blood Rage series. Let's buy this and make a huge amount of money. And so people did. And they did make some money. They definitely did, don't get me wrong. But they made less, far less than someone made on Blood Rage. Whereas on Blood Rage you could have quadrupled or quintupled your investment. On Rising Sun you were lucky to double your investment. And that's still good money. Go all in on Rising Sun, $150, $200, and double your investment a year and a half later. That's a better return than you'll see anywhere else. But again, even Rising Sun was 2 years ago. Every year that goes by, more and more people want in on this seemingly easy money. So every year that goes by, it becomes less profitable because more people are buying it not for themselves, but to flip it. There's a common thing people do nowadays on Kickstarter. They buy one for themselves and one to pay for the one that they got for themselves. And whereas that was easy back in the day, more and more it's getting to the point where you may have to buy 3. One for yourself and 2 to pay for the one for yourself, or maybe even 4. And that's assuming you pick a Kickstarter that does well. There's always the risk factor. Even if you're good at picking companies that do well, there's still a risk factor at play. While you can definitely hedge your bets by avoiding companies that don't have that track record, you can stick to Awakened Realms, to Simon, to the Deep Madness, I can't remember the name of that company. There's Ludus Magnus Games from Black Rose Wars, Mythic, what's it called? What is it? Mythic Battles. Who did that? I can't remember, the two companies split off, Mythic Games and Monolith, Mythic and Monolith. There are specific companies that if you keep your eye on them, you can almost guaranteed make your money back on those companies. But it's still not a guarantee even there. So there's still a risk factor you have to account for. Besieged over here is a great example. Besieged is by Cool Mini or Not, and that one does not make any of its money back at all. Rum and Bones, Rise of Moloch, those ones tend to break even a little more. So even within the established companies that do well, there's still a risk factor. And in addition to that risk factor, so now you have to factor in multiple things. You have to factor in your money's being locked up for a year and a half, which is one. There's a risk factor even on the established companies, let alone on the unestablished companies. You back a game like Wild Ascent, for instance. Wild Ascent is a game that looks great. I backed it. I think I'll enjoy it, and if I don't, I think I'll make my money back. But I don't think that it's likely to be a huge profit unless it's a sleeper hit. It's not a known company. Who knows how it's going to go? So in addition to locking up, in addition to the risk, you're not even getting twice your money back anymore. It's very, it is case by case for sure, but more and more people are getting hip. People are getting wise to the fact that you can do this, you can make easy money, and so they go in on it. Seventh Continent is a great example. The first Kickstarter of Seventh Continent, people were flipping that thing for 3 or 4 times its value. But when the recent reprint, the second Kickstarter finally hit the market and flooded the shelves, people at first, the first wave of people, they actually made good money because people were like, boom, I want it, and now it's here, great, I'm in. But the second wave of people are struggling. It's harder and harder to find buyers who are willing to pay a premium when the market is flooded with people who are looking to make a profit. So if you, whoever's watching this video right now, if you're someone who's interested in speculating, you can probably still make money here. You can probably still hedge your bets. You can probably, maybe not make a killing, but make something. And if that's something you're interested in doing, there's a process to it. Maybe we'll put another video or something of how to pick, what to look for, what are the indicators. But know that even all those probablys aside, even all those whatevers, it's no longer guaranteed money. It's no longer tripling your money with minimal investment. Now it's more work. There's more energy. You have to factor in the reshipping costs you're going to deal with. You have to factor in the hassle, the energy. You have to factor in the fact that when the game hits the shelf, if you don't hit your window right away, for those first people who are selling it day one, they get to cash in on the fear of people who really want it, and they're like, maybe if I wait I can get it, maybe if I wait the price will go up. So there's always those first wave people can get a decent amount. And additionally, the last wave, if you hold out long enough, and if the game does well, then you might also be able to cash in because a lot of people sold in the middle. But the bulk of the people selling it are going to be selling it, a month after it arrived, but well before the 2 years you'll have to wait to see if it goes up in value. And those people, you're not going to make a killing anymore. If you get 1.5 times your money at this point, that's a good return at this point in the Kickstarter environment. Yes, you could get 2 in some cases, but you'll also get 1 or less than 1 in other cases. I would say don't bank on getting more than 1.5. And if you're watching this video a year from now, that number is outdated. It might be far less, it might be far more if the market drastically changes. But again, the basic idea, there's an age-old principle of there's no such thing as easy money, and that's true here as well. Kickstarter's easy money days were there when people didn't know it was easy money. That's the nature of the game. If people don't know it's easy money, that's how it's easy money. As soon as people know, there's nothing to cash in on. This is like buying Bitcoin after the price has risen to the top. You're too late to the game. The people who didn't know it was a sure thing were the people who made money. The people who do know it's a sure thing don't make money, or at least not nearly as much as they used to. So in your case, as whoever you are, yes, you can still make money. Yes, you'll have to work for it a bit. In our case, Board Game Co., the reason we don't do this, the reason we don't speculate on Kickstarters, is because we have, as any business does, we have limited funds. And so we have to choose very wisely where to put those funds. We have to choose whether we're investing in more new games, which is something we're always trying to add. We're always trying to increase our rotation of new games because we recognize that our businesses has a lot of pluses, a lot of pros, a lot of things you won't find elsewhere, but it's also missing some of the new stock that you can't hop onto a site and with the same level of reliability know that we'll have the same new rotation that Cool Stuff Inc. will have, that Miniature Market will have. We'll have a heck of a lot of stuff they don't, but in a hobby where the cult of the new is king, it's, that's definitely a weak point. So we need to put our money towards those games. And while we won't see 1.5 times return on a game, when we sit there and buy a game to resell it, we will not see 1.5 times return. But we also won't tie our money up for a year and a half to get 1.5 times return. We'll tie up our money for a few weeks, maybe a few months if the game sits on the shelf, but we're going to see that money back far faster. So even if we only see, 1.25 return or 1.2 returns, but that's magnified every few months because we keep rotating that return. And any economics experts out there, or not experts, just basic math, rotating your money at 1.2 times, every 2 months is going to be far more of a return than 1.5 for a year and a half. So it's not worth it to us with our limited funds to get involved in the speculating market on Kickstarters. There are companies that do it, and they're doing well. There's two game stores I know of alone that do it. There's the Game Steward at the very least, and then there's one other who I saw ads for, but I don't recall who they were. But all they do, these companies, is they buy Kickstarters and they turn around and sell them for a profit. Great, I'm happy they're doing it. They also charge more than the 1.5 times, but they have the reliability of people know where to go, people know to trust them, so they can get away with charging more than 1.5. And I highly recommend those companies if you're looking to buy a Kickstarter after the time has passed. Try the open market if you want. Try these companies. Do what you want. But there is a market for them, but it's not something we're looking to get into. We have our niche. We're good at what we do. There's a lot of areas to improve upon. but ultimately getting involved in Kickstarters just means tying up capital in a business where we need all our capital to do all the other things we want to do. There's a lot of things we want to do here. There's a lot of value we want to bring to the table that we're not currently, or areas that we want to improve upon that we are currently. But Kickstarter speculating is not for us. It might be for you, but know what you're getting yourself into. There's no such thing as easy money, and the market's harder, the market's tougher because it was so appealing for so long. Ultimately, good luck. Like and subscribe this video. This is the first video I'm asking you to like and subscribe. It's a big deal. It's very helpful. But like and subscribe. If you have any feedback, anything you want us to, any type of videos you want to see, whether it's more reviews, whether it's more things about the hobby, more things about what Board Game Co.'s doing, just let us know. We're an open book and we're happy to talk. Have a good one.